Okay. So for this, I wanted to reiterate a point I made yesterday. This is going to be, viewer discretion advised, heavily advised. I'm going to be very frank, very blunt, very honest. It's going to be really hard for me to talk about a lot of this shit, but it's for the greater good, and it doesn't do me any service to fabricate or not tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth. So, as embarrassing as the nature of the subject is, yeah, perhaps there's somebody in the dark, like I was for many years, going through something similar that could maybe find solace in my symptoms and story and what I've been going through and relate. And if I could at least do that for one person, then my humiliation or embarrassment is worth it. So, along with all my other crazy dizzy symptoms and all these changes that started happening in my body, I obviously started to notice like my sexual function starting to take a dive as well. And as I was putting these notes together yesterday, I really went back, and it was really driving my memory of just how long I've had chronic dizziness associated with sexuality and sexual function and sexual activity and things like that. And when I was writing all these like points that I want to talk about, it reminded me of like my relationship to dizziness and sexuality from a very young age. I remember the first time I ever masturbated or tried to masturbate, I got incredibly dizzy, super lightheaded, super strange. And that was probably like one of the first bouts of dealing with dizziness I ever got. And I remember I was 10 years old and I was trying to masturbate in my bathroom. I remember it to a T. And I remember just how dizzy I got. And that freaked me out. And I took it to my friends, and like I was like asking my friends, I'm like, you don't get dizzy when you masturbate? They just laugh at me. And like they're like, no, what are you talking about? I don't get dizzy when we masturbate. Like, what are you saying? So that was definitely a huge red flag as well. And I remember the first time that was like, I knew nothing about having an orgasm. I knew nothing about things like that or ejaculating or, and that type of thing was just so far out from my mind. I had no idea that was even like something possible to do with being chronically dizzy when I'm masturbating. So that was an extremely interesting time in my life. And, the years go by and, it sort of like takes a back seat a little bit. And I get, heavy into masturbating like any teenage boy does, from ages from 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, teenage years. And I just remember like watching porn and always like feeling dizzy watching porn and like feeling like this is just wrong and shameful, like all of this is just so taboo and so wrong and just dirty and like that's just like how I felt, right? And I think I lost my virginity around 15 years old, and it was super hard to do any of that because I was just always dizzy. I remember being with my girlfriend and just having these dizzy spells, going into going into sexual intercourse with her. I just always remember like, getting really dizzy and getting really nervous and not being able to become aroused because I was just dizzy at like, 15, 16 years old. And that was something I started to suppress because, like, obviously, like, she didn't know what was happening. I barely knew what was happening with me. All I know is that, like, I'm trying to have sex with my girlfriend and I'm just, like, having these, like, dizzy episodes, which made it just horrible. And it just, like, morphed into, like, these weird obsessive rules that, like, I started to form. Like, I remember, I just remember, like, feeling like it like morphed into like all these weird rules I started to have, like all these weird OCD, like obsessive rules, like that just made sense in my head. Like I remember like I could only have sex with her on the weekends, like only on Saturday, like at a specific time. I remember like not even wanting to like kiss her or anything like at school because it was like I don't know, something about it was just like it just didn't register in my mind. I remember particularly one time. I remember she gave me I remember her giving me a blowjob in her house on a Wednesday, and I just remember like feeling like so wrong about like oh it's Wednesday and we're doing sexual things, and I remember saying that to her. That was probably like the first time I ever like expressed like a weird OCD moment like that, and she's like. So like she's like yeah so what and like in my mind I'm like yeah, what like so what? So like it's but like in my mind, like my OCD madness, I'm like Wednesday cannot have sexual activity at all. Like like only weekends. It was so strange. So anyways, just over the years and I started to like as I got worse in my neck and back pain like around 17, 18, 19, 20 years old, like my neck and back started to get worse and I started noticing, yeah, like my erection was like it was just hard to get an erection and maintain it and hold one. And it was just also like really hard to have an orgasm. Like just really it just took so long to try an orgasm. And it's like, how am I 20 years old struggling to get an erection, struggling to have an orgasm? Like, what is going on? So that went on for years and I just suppressed it like I did. And those were the years that I really formed like my interest and just philosophies around like the porn industry and wanting to go into porn and like wanting to create porn, wanting to go into the adult industry and wanting to do it my way. And those are those formative years where I was just like forming my philosophy about like how I view the porn industry, which is like my take on it. It was just like this is seriously like such a boring industry that really lacks like a certain psychological or like cerebral tone to it. And like I just started coming up with all these ideas for like porn scenes and like things I want to do and how I can reshape the industry. And every time I did that, I would just get dizzy. I would just get shameful. I would just be like, how am I ever going to go into porn with like, obviously my dick isn't working and I can't even get an erection or how am I going to be a porn star being dizzy and just like, all this shame, all these emotions of like, how is the world going to view me? How are my parents going to view? How is like society? But I, obviously deep down inside had this passion. I've always been creative. I've always been into music and just creating in general. So I just saw it as another creative outlet for myself is the way deep down inside my intuitive voice felt, but my like societal conditioning was obviously fighting with me. So it made it extremely difficult to come to terms with like, wanting to go into this field and wanting to innovate it and because like I really like it's funny because like I hate porn. It's like I hate it and I love it at the same time. Like I like the idea of being sexually creative and expressive, and it's like the actual sex physical part for me is like literally like 5% of it. The rest is just like having that physical expression, having that just like a more unique and just avant-garde expressive outlet, which is what my soul just ached for like my whole life, and that's why I got into music and all the other things I do. So it's like this clash of like knowing what my intention is, knowing what my heart about it is, knowing that like I don't want to like go into this industry and just be like some exploitative like creepy guy that's like some pervert and just like fucks women over and just like scams people and just, you know, like humiliates women on camera and these types of things. And, you know, but either way, no matter what, when you are in that industry and you are doing those types of, you know, that type of content, that's still how the world looks at you. No matter how good of a person you know you are or the people closest to you, it's like the world will still view you as a scumbag. And when you're chronically dizzy and you're highly attuned to what everyone's thinking and you're so out of body all the time, yeah, of course it's gonna fuck with you. And then when you start to doubt, you start having intrusive thoughts of like, I'm just gonna be this broke, dizzy, like loser who everyone thinks I'm a pervert, and like I'm just hopeless, and I just might as well kill myself. And it's just like again this intuition clashing with like this ego based doubt, intrusive way of thinking, and there was a part of me that's like, okay, well, I've always felt a very strong way about sexuality, which is like to get dizzy and like be shameful about it. And it's like I kind of see going into porn and like doing porn as like an outlet to just totally ruthlessly face all those fears and just experiment and just do right, you know, and just like, I don't know, show a different perspective to porn. Like show that like, hey, like you don't have to be like this degenerate, gambling, womanizing, like, you know, just doing porn to support your coke habit type of person. Like you could actually be a very intelligent, very like well kept, smart person and just still make this type of content. And I've always been so conscious about that, and that always was something that I really tried to make an effort to put forth. And because like, you know, again, it's like, to be frank, a lot of the porn industry, a lot of the adult industry and people in it, without judging, not judging anybody, it's like a lot of it does kind of come off like degenerate and trashy. And that, if you like, I never saw myself, I'm not like this party type. I don't do drugs. I don't smoke or drink at all. I don't judge anyone who does, just not my path. A lot of me not drinking was due to my dizziness. I stopped smoking weed because of my dizziness. So those were the years where that was really forming in me. It was just like, again, this total contradiction of like forming all of this desire and passion to like want to go into the adult industry and change things and do things differently and show a more creative and artistic and just, you know, not take it so serious and just make a more psychologically stimulating body of content and just really innovate, you know, in that very extreme field. And, you know, I struggled. I mean, even to this day, even to like recently, it's like I always struggled. Like, am I just like this pervert? Like, you're just questioning your own morals or questioning your own just personality. And, you know, so those years were very tough. And, you know, it's funny because I have not had sex since 2019. I literally have not had sex since 2019 because of my dizzy symptoms. During those years of, you know, really forming into the dizziness in my neck and like all these issues really starting to like consume my life, masturbating and porn. And I don't even really consume a lot of porn like that. I'm not watching videos avidly. It's more just like me creating and getting off to like the idea of me innovating. It wasn't even like I'm not even a big porn consumer because I find it a lot of the time boring. But masturbation was like the only time my nervous system felt safe. Like it felt not so deregulated for a little bit. Like I probably would masturbate 2-3 times a day when I was like 20, 21 years old, 22. Yeah, that was like the only, because again, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't have vices like that. I don't have like much outlets. Like my whole day is chronically stressed and dizzy and consumed by stress. Like the only time I found a little solace was in masturbation. And it was just like great escape. It was like on top of like my desires and passions for like a career wise, it was also like, this is how my body can feel safe for a little bit and not so crazy sympathetic nervous system driven for a little bit. And again, I started to feel like bad about it. I started to feel like, oh my God, like, am I dependent on masturbating now? Like, so during that time as well, the last time I had sex was 2019. So was that 4 years ago? I was like, around that age. So the girl that I was with, that was the first time I noticed that my orgasms, like in my body, was changing. Again, I'm going to get esoteric. I'm going to get very specific here because that's the only way I can describe it. There is the way your body feels when you make yourself orgasm, and then there's how your body feels when somebody else is making you orgasm. And my God, I remember this one time where she made me orgasm with her hands. And I remember my whole diaphragm, my whole body, everything like this was just locked up. Like I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe or couldn't move. I was fucking freaked the fuck out. I thought I was having a seizure because like I'm like, what the fuck? And then once I finally stopped, like I literally could not move like during the orgasm. It was scary as fuck. I was so freaked out. I never felt like that in my life. I had no idea what the fuck this was. And that's how it felt. It felt like everything locked up and I couldn't breathe, I couldn't move, nothing. And once I finally came out of it, I like jump up out of my bed. I'm like, oh my God, I think I just had a seizure. What was going on? And I'm freaking out. And she's like, yo, you gotta just calm down. Just calm down. And I'm like, no, I think I just had a seizure. You don't understand. So that was freaky. And then so I just thought like, okay, maybe she's right. Maybe like I just had a really hard orgasm. And that was not the case. It's kept going. The next night that we're having sex, again, the same thing happened, but it wasn't as intense as that first one. That first one was like so crazy intense. It probably had a lot to do with the fact that we were in my house, at home, in my parents' house. And when I'm home in my parents' house that I still live in, I am chronically dizzy. I'm chronically stressed. I feel at my worst when I'm home because of just unresolved emotions and traumas and things that I'm still working on this day of resolving, and just all the things that have happened in the house over the years. I always felt crazy unstable at home. So that probably had something to do with it. It was a very anomalous situation. Like I never have friends over the house, or let alone girlfriends sleeping over. So I'm sure that had a lot to do with it, like being chronically stressed and just like, just very OCD about that. So that probably contributed to it. And I remember we went to her college dorm the next night and had sex again, and she made me orgasm. And I still locked up. I still felt that like diaphragm compress, like a solid rock, but it wasn't as intense as the night before. And so that carried on. Like that's like how I now orgasm with when someone else is making me orgasm. Like I don't feel that way when I'm making myself orgasm. I only feel that way when someone else is doing it to me. And I've asked my chiropractor, like, I'm like, what is this about? Like, why does that happen? And he's telling me, he's like, well, your heart rate is chronically high. Like, your resting heart rate's like above 100 at all times. And your sympathetic is just going crazy. So when you have an orgasm, like, everything just shoots up that much more. And the ruminative, intrusive thoughts kick in, and it's like, no, that's not. No, there's got to be something more. There's got to be something really wrong. It's like, what's really happening? It's like the intrusive thoughts, and this is why Dr. Yo is so genius. She's just an alien, and exactly. It's like you don't want to accept that it's stress. You like in the back, like again, when you're like a high personality A type, it's like you don't want to admit that like you're chronically you're like, oh, stressed. Oh yeah, I'm stressed. Oh shit. Like I don't know. It's like you very minimize it, and yeah. So that's interesting. And then that was the last time I had sex was with that girl. And then ever since then, like I stopped having sex because of just my symptoms. I would always be dizzy as fuck, like changing positions. Like I could not lay down on her bed. Like I had to stand the whole time. And you just find yourself being a smaller and smaller box. With every move, you can't lay down, or if you do lay down, you can't be laying down, getting up, doing this, changing positions, and because of the POTS, right? Because of like the episodes I've had where I woke up and I go to stand up out of bed and I just nearly collapse because I'm so dizzy, and that I started to notice a trend happen over the years. And I used to lay in bed and masturbate for like sometimes 2-3 hours on end. Like I would take a nap, I'd wake up, I'd be on my phone, just cramped, like, my neck all cramped up in my pillow and just be like staring at my phone for like hours, just masturbating. And I 100% believe that led to like aiding in fucking up my cervical spine and my spine in general. So there was a bunch of times where, and also like my sleep is horrible, by the way. Like I don't, since high school, I literally for 2 years straight could not fall asleep before 5 a.m. and I'd wake up fucking 3 p.m. and I'd feel horrible. I feel like a scumbag piece of shit that I woke up so late and the world is going by and I'm just jobless because I can't hold a job and I'm trying to do music, and then now I want to be a porn star, a musician. There's all these entrepreneurial ideas I have. I'm like, I'm thinking of my hotel. Like I want to make a hotel franchise and I'm working on that, and I'm working on music, and I'm thinking of porn shit. I'm thinking of this, that. I'm like, oh, I want to build cars. I want to do all these things in life. I want to help people. I want to, learn about dizziness and help people with dizziness. And it's just all these thoughts and like, all the repressed emotions from over the years. Yeah, so like, it's just all that emotion just, of course, aided it in just how I felt. And like I said, I would lay in bed for like hours on end just masturbating. And there was a couple times where after I ejaculated, I would go to get up from laying down and I would get a super crazy POTS, like, low blood pressure episode. And I feel like crazy dizzy when I got up. So I don't even masturbate anymore laying down in my bed. I have to always sit up nowadays. And was super tough. Also, like okay, so The chiropractic work helped me so much. It did. It really put me, if I didn't start doing chiropractic, I would be so bad. Like when I think about where I was before I started doing chiropractic and then after, holy shit. But so going back to what I was saying, where it was hard to orgasm, like the girl that I was with at the time when I was 21, like it would take her like sometimes 2 hours to make me have an orgasm. It was really hard. And being that I'm like, being that I want to go into porn, I'm like, I could use this to my advantage. Like, wow. And so that's how it was for a couple years. Like I was making solo content and using that to my advantage, or, making solo content, making content with girls. Like I just lasted so long. It was really hard to make me come. And, you start to use that as a tool if you're in the porn industry. And that's, around age 21, that was like, I was having like a lot of sex that year. I was having sex with that girl. And then I was also like really exploring like meeting other girls who are in that industry and like shooting content together. And I would dizzy my way through making content with these girls. And it was always really difficult to have an orgasm, which I started to like adapt to and use to my benefit, because you could just keep going and make a longer scene. So all of that changed when I started doing chiropractic. And again, I always had this low back pain along with the neck pain. And I started looking up like the pudendal nerve, the sacral nerves, and all of the nerves that go to the genitalia, and just like, how low back pain can be an indication that like those nerves are not firing correctly, that neurology is not working, which definitely wasn't, because it took quite a bit of effort to maintain an erection and have an orgasm. So, once I remember after about a year in of doing chiropractic, doing lower back adjustments, that's when this crazy stamina, which was really just my dick being numb and just not getting blood and neurologic flow to the nerves to work properly. All that shit went out the window once we started adjusting my back and getting my back better, and my neck and my spine, and everything's starting to work better now. I remember this moment I had. I was like, I remember feeling like, oh my God, I can't last that much long. Like, why does it feel so much more sensitive? Like my penis started feeling more sensitive, and I was starting to notice that like I was like struggling to kind of like hold in an orgasm and just wait it out. And I'm like, whoa, what is this? And then I remember after I went to my chiropractor, it was a Thursday night, I was like starting to obsess about it. So I tried to test it. I tried to do the worst thing you can do and check and try and test. So I have this, like I said, I'm going to get very candid and very, I'm going to tell the truth. I'm going to get pretty esoteric. So I have this automatic toy, an electric stroker toy that, again, it would take usually like at least 40 minutes to an hour to make me orgasm in the past. And then I remember using this toy one night after the chiropractor, and I literally ejaculated within about 10 seconds. And that sent me into a whirlwind of existential crisis. And literally, I talk about it to my OCD therapist, because ever since that moment happened, it was like, whoa, I have no stamina anymore. I went from not being able to come for like 4 hours to like nowadays I'm gonna come in like 30 seconds if I'm lucky. And that really threw me for a spin. Again, it's like, how could I ever be a successful porn star? I can't last on camera. I can't last more than 30 seconds, and I'm dizzy. I'm just going to be this fucking dizzy, premature, ejaculating, chronically dizzy, loser for my whole life. That's literally the thought process that starts to go down. Wow. What else did I write down? That's what happened to me about 2 years ago, like right when the pandemic started, was when I started with this whole premature ejaculation, which really isn't like premature. It's like kind of normal to like ejaculate in a couple minutes or so. But for me, because I have this like obsessive standard and high achieving standard for myself, that like ejaculating at normal rate is abnormal for me. It's like what is going on, and all of this obsession around your existential OCD. And so that kind of balanced out over the years, like, as I keep doing chiropractic and I keep working on the dizziness and whatnot. So it's like nowadays things are kind of tossed up in the air. Like nowadays with that, I'm either going to ejaculate in 20 seconds or 2 hours. It kind of flip flops between like the new premature way and like the old way. It's like I went from like one extreme side of the spectrum to another. I went from like not being able to come for 4 hours to coming in 10 seconds. And nowadays I feel like I'm like in between a place where, yeah, it's like I can see the potential. Like if I psych myself out, I can come in like 2 seconds, or I can, be like the old way. So I'm just on this journey seeing where this goes, but that is how this dizziness definitely affected my sexual function for sure. Like I said, I hope that helps somebody out there that may be dealing. I don't know how a woman's body works in that regard. I can only speak from my, the male body perspective. So yeah, that's I can that's what I have to say about that. I mean, I hope somebody I hope that helps. And I'm going to be diving into more specific stories and details about other areas, Thanks for watching. Feel free to ask me any questions. That was interesting. That was fun. It felt good to get it out. So hopefully people find value. All right. Take care of your necks, folks. Take care of your vestibulars and your necks. Thank you.